All right, boys and girls, today we are going to continue our work from yesterday. Today is January 26th, January 26th, 2021. Yesterday we started some work on how characters change over time. We started to look and see that Peter's opinion about war is changing. Peter's opinion is changing. He is no longer thinking that war is fair. He keeps telling he keeps telling his friends, he keeps telling everybody that war, you got to punch him in the face. You got to get what's yours. You got to fight for what's right. But in reality now, after some of the things that he's been going through, he's starting to learn that not everything is fair in war, right, Amaris? Not everything is fair in war. So, characters change over time. So, in our table of contents, if you could go to that right now, go to the table of contents real quick. And you're going to see here that we started, let me focus that for you. Okay, we started yesterday 125.21, day 20. Today we're going to finish that. We're going to finish day 20, how characters change over time. Okay, please turn to page 96, 96. Turn to page 96, please. And the last thing that we read was about how Peter got invited by his grandpa. Peter got invited by his grandpa to go on a fishing trip. Right now, Peter's waking up. Him and his grandpa has made him some sandwiches. Peter's like, no mustard, please. So they're making sandwiches. They're getting along. Let's see what happens. Remember, when people go fishing, they go fishing so early, and Peter is like just like a zombie right now because it is so early. It is so early, and I believe that they still. Yes, Kyra.
One time, me and my grandma and grandpa, we were going fishing, and we had to go really early because my grandpa wanted to catch a certain fish.
Yeah, a certain kind of fish. Yeah, there's some fish that can only be caught at night, right? I know that some catfish like coming out at night because they like staying cool. And so during the day when it's sunny, they go way deep in the river, way deep in the river or in the lake, or they go and hide under rocks or under wherever there's shadows. But then at night, that's when they come out and they hunt. So that's why sometimes people go catfishing at night, right? I'm not a very experienced fisherman, but my son, he loves to fish, and whenever I take him, he always teaches me stuff. So all of this, what I'm telling you, I got it from my son because he loves to fish. He loves to fish catfish. Okay, so they're waking up really early. Let's see what happens next. We are on page 96. Peter is asking his grandpa, why are we getting up so early? And this is what his grandpa says. His grandpa said tides. His grandpa said tides. Let's see. Peter asked, won't the fish be there in the afternoon too? Tides, Grandpa said, as we went to Mom's car. Before I got into the front seat, I squinted up into the black sky. The stars looked like asterisks. Grandpa drove slowly and carefully through city streets, then turned onto the interstate highway. High tides, Grandpa explained to me, are when most of the fish like to feed. The water comes into the harbor and it brings a lot of things fish like to eat. So if you drop your hook on the incoming tide, see, Mr. Fish just thinks, here's a tasty nibble, and takes your bait. That's why we have to be out and on the water by 7 o'clock today, because the high tide comes at 9:07 exactly. He looked over at me in the dark. You do know what a tide is, don't you? It's when the water gets higher and lower, I said. But what makes it do that? The moon, Grandpa said. I thought he was making a joke. How about the stars? I said. Or the mountains, or the trees, maybe? Grandpa chuckled. Nope, just the moon. And the full moon you get. And on the full moon, you get your highest tides of the month. It's called gravitational pull, Pete. And it's true. You could look it up sometime. People keep charts of tides and they can tell you when each tide will come for years and years ahead. The tide is very important. Must be, I said. It pulled me right out of bed at 4:30 in the morning, didn't it? We stopped at a diner a little while later and had breakfast. It was only about 5 o'clock in the morning, the earliest I ever had breakfast in my life. Grandpa had the waitress fill his thermos with coffee, and we hit the road again. Grandpa was humming along with a song on the radio. He seemed very happy. Ahead of ahead of us, the sky was beginning to lighten as dawn came up. Ain't it great? Grandpa grinned at me. Just us two gents out on the road, foot loose and fancy free. Don't you love it? It did feel good being out and alone with Grandpa. Okay, boys and girls, Peter is actually enjoying. He's saying that it feels good. It's feeling good to be out and about, footloose, just two jets, just two good old boys out having a ball, having breakfast at 5 in the morning, and then going fishing. Just two best buds. He's really enjoying being with his grandpa. He loves his grandpa. He is with his grandpa. This makes me think that Peter, his opinion is changing about his grandpa. His opinion is changing about his grandpa. He just said, it feels good to be with him alone. He's happy, right? Okay, so let's continue here. Peter is changing. He is loving being with his grandpa. Let's continue reading. We are at the bottom of page 97. The bottom of page 97. Here we go. We got to Cold Spring Harbor just as the sun was peeping all red and gold at the edge of the sky. Grandpa drove down to the water and parked near Bill's boat and bait shop. I have to tell something true right here. Inside that place, it smelled so awful. There ought to be a law against it. It smelled like rotten fish had been left there for about a year. That smell could gross out my whole class, maybe the whole school. We got two little pails of bait and walked down the dock on the other side to where the rowboats were tied up. Grandpa helped me into my life vest and put on one himself. Then we put all our stuff into the boat. It had a wide, flat bottom, and Grandpa tucked our fishing rods and tackle under the front seat. Then helped me get in. Safety first, he told me. No standing up. Sit in one place on the seat and tell me beforehand if you want to move around. Aye, aye, sir, I said, and it made him grin. Grandpa untied us from the dock, put the oars in place, and rowed us out into the harbor. It was neat traveling across the smooth water in a small boat. The sunlight dancing on the water, and a cool breeze in my face. I love it, I said to Grandpa, and he smiled. So here we go again. Peter is loving it. When Peter told Grandpa that he loved fishing, this makes me think again that Peter is changing. Peter is changing, boys and girls. Anybody want to tell me, how is he changing? Amaris, how is he changing? Speak loud so everyone can hear you. Hold on, I'm gonna unmute you so everyone can hear, okay? Go ahead and press unmute. Go ahead.
Because Peter was going on the boat and the air was coming out of his face and it felt good, and he was with his grandpa spending time with him. So he was having the fun of his life.
Yeah, he's having a great time, right? So he's having a great time. He is loving being with his grandpa. He is loving being with his grandpa. And so this is different. This is a change because before he hated the fact that his grandpa was coming to his house and stealing his room. And it's almost like he forgot about it. He's
Yeah.
changing a little. All right. Thank you so much. Okay, let's keep reading. Let's keep reading. There's a whole lot more to tell you about that day, but this chapter is much too long already. I could tell about Grandpa teaching me to bait a hook with a worm or a piece of dead clam, about how you drop your hook until you feel the bottom and then take up just enough slack in your line. Or the fantastic feeling when a flounder takes the bait and starts to wiggle and jump around, and how you have to pull him in so careful and slow and getting him up and into the boat. Almost everything about that day was wonderful. We caught a whole lot of fish, more than 20. I got so hungry, I ate my first sandwich before 9 o'clock. I learned how to row a boat. It was hard to do, but I rowed us part ways back to the dock. I learned how to clean a fish and get the scales off. Scales. When the book says that Peter learned all about fishing that day, I was thinking that Peter is changing. In the beginning, boys and girls, in the beginning, Peter, like I was saying earlier, Peter did not want to be near his grandpa. His grandpa was all mopey and sad. You know, when Peter said that he learned about fishing that day, he is changing because, number one, in the beginning, Peter doesn't know how to fish. And now, because he is old enough, his grandpa is teaching him all about fishing. So Peter is changing. This makes me think about what his dad told him. Remember what Peter's dad told him? He said, growing up isn't easy. He told him, growing up isn't easy. If you remember on page 25, way back, the beginning of our story. Okay, you can log back in. On page 25, Peter's dad was telling him, growing up is not easy, Pete. Sometimes you have to do things you don't want to do. So this is making me think about what is going to happen next in the story. I think now that Peter is loving his grandpa, I think maybe the war's over. And then maybe he's just going to surrender and he's going to be okay with everything. He's going to surrender by just giving his room to his grandpa, you know, because his grandpa does have a hurt leg. So how is he going to expect him to go upstairs? You know, his leg hurts. He can hardly walk on it. He walks really slow. So that's what I'm thinking. I don't know. You know, I think that Peter is realizing that he's growing up. He's growing up, and it's the right thing to do. Just give him the room. Give him the room, and that's it. Okay? Let's finish this chapter and then we'll continue. We'll move on. Here we go. It was an adventure. Exciting, thrilling, and just a little bit of danger behind it. And I loved every minute of it. We're going to do this again, I told Grandpa on the way home. You bet we are, he said. And we have gone fishing together a lot, many times since that first day. Once we even took Jenny along and she liked it too. But nothing will ever make me forget that first time alone with Grandpa. So you can see why I felt a little sad later that night when I sneaked into my old room and stole Grandpa's wristwatch. What? Oh my goodness. He stole his grandpa's. Here I thought that Peter was finally growing up. I'll go ahead and put your bookmarks in on page 100. Okay, put your bookmarks in. A little piece of paper, rip a little piece of paper from somewhere, and just put your little bookmark in so you can hold your place, okay? So here I was thinking that Peter was finally growing up. I told you what they talked about with his dad. Here I was thinking that things were going to be okay. He was just going to surrender his room. He had a great time with his dear old grandpa. His grandpa taught him how to fish. And then he steals his watch. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So boys and girls, we have reached the end of quadrant 3. We have reached the end of quadrant 3. We are now on page 100. So thank you so much for all of you for coming. Thank you for showing up. Hope you have a great day. I will see you tomorrow for our morning meeting at 9 o'clock. At 9 o'clock. Stephanie, I will see you tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Everyone say bye to each other. We'll see you later. Everyone says bye. Say bye. See you later.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.